Hello, friends, and welcome to the RR Show. It is Vince again, and we have got some great stuff. We're going to be diving into Boomers Being Fools, I Don't Work Your Lady, Malicious Compliance, and Petty Revenge. It's going to be a good one, so let's start this episode of the RR Show right now. As I said, our first story comes from r/Boomers Being Fools. And the story is posted by Constant Courage. Boom! Why I called 911 after talking to my mother-in-law. This was about 10 years ago in a city that borders a rugged mountainous wilderness. My mother-in-law is a hoarder, for real. I've been married 15 years to her daughter, and to this day, never been allowed to go inside her house. Not interested. It's bad enough outside with 3 junk cars in a 30-foot driveway, along with 2 prefab sheds full of junk and a rotting Spinaton amusement ride that sits in the front yard with 2 goats. There were 3 school buses, but the city got her to get rid of them. She has led an unconventional life, working in remote construction all over the country and being self-employed, buying into one trend after another. She owned a Glamour Shots for a while. That's one of those mall photo places that were popular in the late 80s that has costumes and does makeup and hair for walk-in photo sessions. She would collect almost anything that was free if she thought it had value. As a hoarder, she has almost no attention to detail. She doesn't pay attention to the small things. Instructions, what time it is, if anything else is happening. Every once in a while, she tried to maniacally clean or repair part of her house. One summer day, she called me. She treats me like Google. If you know boomers, you know what I mean. She calls me all the time with questions about random things or to help her with something. I don't mind, but a thank you once in a while would be nice. She calls me today and tells me she is cleaning out her basement and has found something. Actually, a bunch of stuff. 5 big cardboard barrels with red labels. Maybe 20 to 30 gallons each. To look it up, I need to know what is the exact color of the label and if there are numbers or letters. She tells me to hold on. She has a landline and has to go to the basement to look. A minute goes by. She gets back on the line. It's an orange diamond and it says 11. I Google it and there's nothing specific. I am half skim reading as I'm on the phone saying it's not really clear. She tells me there are lines on the label too. I get the idea it might be some kind of hazmat and maybe explosives, but nothing matches what she said. I ask her to look again and maybe write it down. She had a cell phone, but she held out on getting a data plan until it was included, and she didn't have home internet. She puts the phone down again, and I'm feeling anxious because I'm pretty sure it's some sort of explosive gunpowder, and it would make most sense because that's common, but there's a huge military base that surrounds the area. As a hoarder, she's always looking for stuff to get cheap and resell at a profit. Not that she ever sells anything. They have auctions, and usually they have a ton of stuff they have to just give away. It feels like forever. She comes back almost out of breath. It says 1.1A. Duh, it says explosives right there. Oh my gosh, the picture isn't lines. It's a little explosive. Google gives me a clear answer. Hazmat explosive label 1.1A indicates that the material is a primary explosive substance with a mass explosion hazard. Those are probably 100-pound chargers, each of explosives, probably for artillery. Are any leaking or wet? Go look right now and call 911, the fire department, and tell them exactly what you told me, and if they're wet or damaged. She doesn't have the same sense of urgency and anxiety that I'm feeling. She says, "Oh, I'm sure it's not a big deal. Hold on, let me go." Click. And then the call is gone. I swear, the phone line goes dead right then. I call her back. I get that line busy sound. My adrenaline spikes. I know she's pretty careless, but could they have exploded? It's only been 20 seconds, but I call back and still that line busy signal. I call the fire department who, unlike my mother-in-law, are very interested and send everyone and the explosives disposal unit. I'm pacing in my living room. It's only been a few minutes. My cell phone rings. It's my mother-in-law. She pulled the phone cord out of the wall by accident and didn't think to call me back because there was no reason to. Until a fire truck showed up. She just didn't think there was any reason to call me back. I even explained from my point of view, you found a pile of explosives and then the phone line cut out and it couldn't go through when I called back. By the way, the barrels of explosives were empty. At no point did she mention that until after the fire department arrived. Our second story comes from r/I don't work here lady from Whiplash Willie, Blue Home Improvement. It all started with a call from my teen daughter. Grandpa went to the store and we haven't seen him in 4 hours. Should we be worried? Maybe? Probably? My dad isn't senile or anything, but he does chase shiny objects sometimes. And he's out of his comfort zone. For context, he lives in an East Coast city of about 30,000 population and is spending the summer in our California city of more than 1 million. So it is possible he wrecked a car, got lost, or met a woman. Who really knows? But he's supposed to be with the kids while I'm at work. A few calls and voicemails later with no answer, and I'm getting ready to leave work early to look for him when he calls me to say he's sorry and he's picking up food for the kids' lunch on the way back home. That night, we got the story. He ran to the Blue Home Improvement box to get some spray paint for an art project with the kids. He works at the Blue Box in his hometown as a part-time retirement gig to keep himself occupied, and he is very social. He was upset by the lower standard of employee and store management in our city, including the poorly merchandised paint. So he started reorganizing the paint shelf. That led to chatting with missionaries from local branch of his religion that he saw in the store. While he was doing this, a few customers asked for advice and he helped them. Soon he had a line and was directing people all over the store for stuff. Thank the people who created the standard store layouts. Positive comments on his performance were passed to the store manager, who was confused because there was no old short guy working in paint today, and those people didn't often get positive comments from customers. So the manager went to investigate. After the line ran down, the manager stepped up to talk to my dad and got an earful about the low standards of shelf organization and safety compliance and observations about a few of the employees. That turned into a store tour and discussion about differences between East and West regions and such. That all ended when I started calling him and he looked at the time. Oops, grandkids are at home with just a teen daughter watching them. He walked out with a standing job offer to work part-time at the local Blue Box anytime he comes for a vacation. And the kids got pizza. So when you're at some random Blue Box and there is a super helpful old guy that seems like he works there but doesn't have a vest on, that's probably my dad on vacation somewhere. Tell him hi for me. Our third story comes from r/malicious compliance, posted by user Possible Seaweed 4815. Malicious compliance? I used to work at a mid-sized company where our department had its own supply closet. Everyone knew the rules: take what you need, don't hoard, and keep the area tidy. Simple enough, right? Well, apparently not for our new micromanaging office manager, Karen. Karen was obsessed with cutting costs. She'd swoop in like a hawk every morning, inspecting the supply closet. If a box of pens was a little lighter or the Post-its weren't perfectly aligned, we'd get a stern email about unnecessary consumption. She even implemented a sign-out sheet for supplies. Want a highlighter? Better justify it in writing. One day, Karen decided to escalate. She put a lock on the supply closet and declared herself the sole key holder. If anyone needed something, they had to email her and wait for her to approve the request. This was, of course, on top of her other duties, so getting a new pen could take hours. Needless to say, productivity started to suffer. So cue the malicious compliance. A coworker of mine, Tom, was a bit of a prankster, but always stayed within the rules. He decided to test Karen's new system to its limits. Every time he needed anything, no matter how small, he emailed Karen. Need a single paperclip? Email. Need to replace a dried-out marker? Email. Stapler jammed? You guessed it, email. Tom's meticulousness inspired the rest of us. Soon, the entire department was flooding Karen's inbox with individual requests. Since Karen insisted on handling every single one personally, she quickly became overwhelmed. Approving requests started to take days instead of hours. Meetings were delayed because people didn't have notebooks. Presentations stalled because someone was waiting for a dry erase marker. Management started taking notice of the bottleneck. Our department's performance metrics were plummeting, and everyone pointed the finger at the supply chain fiasco. Karen tried to defend her system, claiming we were being wasteful and needed structure. But the evidence was clear. Her micromanagement was backfiring. After a particularly disastrous week, upper management stepped in. They not only revoked Karen's authority over the supply closet, but also gave her a formal reprimand. The lock was removed, the sign-out sheet disappeared, and we went back to the honor system. Karen, humiliated, kept a low profile after that. As for us, we may have lost a week of productivity, but the petty satisfaction of watching Karen drown in her own bureaucracy was worth every second. Our final story in this episode comes from r/petty revenge, posted by user Pixel Detox. He made a rude comment in French in front of me, thinking I couldn't understand, but I did. I, a 28-year-old female, live in a 50-floor high-rise building in downtown Vancouver. I just got back from a sweet sunset run. A family entered the building with me and held the door for me. They were speaking French together, but I thanked them in English, the main language here in British Columbia. We all walked towards the elevators and ended up all in the same one. It was a couple and their 3 kids, all boys, around 8 to 10 years old. I am bad with ages, but they were the age of being able to speak and think enough to understand what is right and wrong. They were chatting in French, and since it's my mother tongue, I could understand everything they were saying. As they were going up more than 30 floors, it takes a little time, the dad turned to his kids and asked, "So is she pretty or not pretty?" Suddenly, brain froze, thinking, could he be speaking about me? One of the kids quickly responded in French, "Not pretty." I stopped breathing for a second, realizing now fully that it was truly me they were blatantly judging right in front of me. I froze, sadly, and that's how I react in situations that are just unbelievable. With just a few floors before I could escape the awkwardness, I had a choice to make. Let it go? No. Or seize this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for perfect linguistic revenge. I'm not the confrontational type, but I just could not let this slide. I wasn't the one deserving to feel awkward in this elevator. I kept my cool, though, and as I exited the elevator, I turned back and said with the most sassy French accent I could give, "Have a good evening." The look on their faces, absolutely priceless. I left quickly, but in hindsight, I wish I'd made direct eye contact until the doors closed. I've dealt with rude comments before, but this moment was a chef's kiss. I've always dreamed of a situation like this where I could use another language to surprise someone who thought I couldn't understand them. I'm just saying, but keep your language skills to yourself. You never know when it can become handy. Learning multiple languages is 100% worth it for bamboozling people like that. The mom stood there silently the whole time, almost like she wasn't really present. I couldn't help but wonder if she faces this kind of behavior from him too. There are a few Airbnbs in my building, so I'm guessing they were tourists. I never saw them again. Unfortunately, no chance for a second revenge. So thanks for being with us. The RR Show is a production of Evergreen Podcasts and Wessler Media. Now, if you'd be so kind, please follow or subscribe to our show wherever you get your podcasts. And if you're feeling extra nice, you might as well leave a 5-star review. But for more, visit the website, rrshow.com. That is rrshow.com. I'm your host, Vince, and we'll see you next time here on The RR Show.